Hare Krishna devotees, it's been a long time since we met for Srimad Bhagavatam class on a Sunday evening. So today we'll resume our reading of chapter 5 of Canto 1. The last time we met, we were talking about how Narada Muni comes into the life of Vyasadeva for the purposes of instructing him, because Vyasadeva is feeling a little despondent after having compiled all the Vedic scriptures, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita within the Mahabharata, and so on and so forth. So why should some great personality feel despondent after compiling such an enormous set of instructions and literature, the Vedic scriptures? So that's the reason Narada Muni comes to visit Vyasadeva and to give him instruction. So this particular chapter, chapter 5, is titled Narada's Instruction on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. So we'll read the first 16 shlokas just to bring back to our memory what we discussed a few months back, and then we'll continue with shloka 17 today. So in the first 7 shlokas of this particular chapter, Narada Muni is inquiring as to what is the challenge that Vyasadeva is facing, and Srila Vyasadeva then responds. So Suta Goswami said, "Thus the sage amongst the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi amongst the brahmanas, Vedavyasa. Addressing Vyasadeva, the son of Parashara, Narada inquired, 'Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization? Your inquiries were full and your studies were also well fulfilled. And there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you be despondent in spite of all this, thinking that you are undone, my dear Prabhu?'" So Narada Muni is addressing his student Vyasadeva as "my dear Prabhu." Shri Vyasadeva said, "All you have said about me is perfectly correct. Despite all this, I am not pacified. I therefore question you about the root cause of my dissatisfaction. For you are a man of unlimited knowledge due to your being the offspring of one, Brahma, who is self-born without mundane father and mother. My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you because you worship the creator and destroyer of the material world and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the 3 worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive Supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence, under disciplinary regulations and vows." So these 7 shlokas is Narada asking questions and Vyasadeva responding saying, "My dear master, please guide me, please instruct me. You are all-knowing and you know me already. So please instruct me and guide me." So now from shlokas 8 to 22, in this section, Narada Muni reveals to Srila Vyasadeva the importance of describing Lord Shri Krishna's pastimes. So we've not gone all the way to 22, we stopped at 16. So we'll read up to 16. Sri Narada said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles, beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So Narada Muni is contrasting mundane literature with that may be perfect, but it is really not going to do much good for anybody spiritually, with literature describing the pastimes of the Lord, even if the grammar and other things are imperfect. Because they are glorifying the Lord, everything is considered to be most perfect. And the most important thing is the person compiling it, the person hearing it, the person speaking this kind of literature, everybody gets purified. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? So, so in shlokas 8 and 9, Narada Muni diagnoses and identifies 2 defects in his student. One is he is not sufficiently glorified the Lord. And the second one is that he has overemphasized dharma, artha, and kama and moksha, whatever he has compiled. Then in shlokas 10 and 11, Narada Muni has talked about 2 categories of literature. So broadly, we can say material literature and spiritual literature or transcendental literature. Now, in shlokas 12 to 16, Narada Muni is going to say, if you look at it, the only valuable asset that anybody ever possesses is bhakti. Why? Because bhakti is the only thing that you're going to take with you into your next life as an asset. You take your other activities as well, your karmic reactions you will take with you, which will fructify in the future. But what can you truly consider an asset that belongs to you that nobody can take away from you? That is bhakti. So let's quickly catch up with shlokas 12 to 16 and then we'll begin shloka 17. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided under your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. So it is interesting that Narada Muni here is talking about Srila Vyasadeva's qualifications as a transcendental author. That yes, he has written a lot, he's compiled a lot, but he has overemphasized and faulted on the side of material benefits. And therefore, in the 14th shloka, he has said that, anything that is disconnected from the Supreme Lord is going to feel incomplete. It's not going to satisfy that person. And because you have encouraged this, you are feeling morose as a result of it. And the shloka we stopped at last time was the 16th shloka. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness, through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So, with this, we talked about something in the last class, which is Kevala Bhakti, which is pure Bhakti. We talked about Pradhanya Bhakti, which is mixed Bhakti. And then we talked about Guna Bhava Bhakti, which is mixed Bhakti with Bhakti being secondary or Tatastha, Marjanam. Whereas in Pradhanya Bhakti, Bhakti is predominant, but it's still mixed with maybe perhaps other material type of activities. So that is Kevala Bhakti, Pradhanya Bhakti, and Guna Bhava Bhakti. In Guna Bhava Bhakti, Bhakti becomes secondary. But both Pradhanya Bhakti and Guna Bhava Bhakti are considered to be mixed Bhakti. It is not pure. So only Kevala Bhakti is considered to be pure Bhakti. So that brings us to shloka number 17. All right. So from shloka 17 to 19, Narada Muni is going to talk about how whatever progress that you make on the path of bhakti is forever in your credit, right? It cannot be taken away from you. Even the Lord does not take it away from you. So if the Lord doesn't take it away from you, who else can take it away from you? Nobody can take it away from you. So let's look at shloka 17 to 19. And if we have time, we will do 20 to 22. So shloka 17 to 19 is about progress in bhakti. Whatever progress you make, that is a permanent credit in your account. It's credited to you forever. Okay. So let's look at shloka number 17. Right. So Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harehe.
Tektva swadharmam charanam bhujam harehe.
Bhajanna pakvo thapate tato yadi.
Bhajan apakko tapate tato yadi.
Yatrakva va bhadram abhudamushyakim.
Yatrakva va bhadram abhut amushyakim.
O varthapto bhajatam swadharmataha.
Ko varta apto bhajatam svadharmataha.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Were we doing word for word meaning, or did we go directly to translation? I don't remember. Okay. Tyaktva.
Tyaktva,
having forsaken, Swadharmam,
Swadharmam,
one's own occupational engagement,
one's own occupational engagement.
Charana Ambujam,
Charana Ambujam,
the lotus feet,
the lotus feet.
Harehe,
Harehe,
of Hari the Lord,
of Hari the Lord.
Bhajan,
Bhajan,
in the course of devotional service,
in the course of devotional service.
Apakvaha,
Apakvaha,
immature,
immature.
Atha,
Atha,
for the matter of,
for the matter of.
Patet,
Patet,
falls down,
falls down.
Tataha,
Tataha,
from that place,
from that place.
Yadi,
Yadi,
if,
if.
Yatra,
Yatra,
whereupon,
whereupon.
Kwa,
Kva,
what sort of,
what sort of.
Va,
Va,
or,
or.
used sarcastically,
Used sarcastically.
Abhadram,
Abhadram,
unfavorable,
unfavorable.
Abhut,
Abhut,
shall happen,
shall happen.
Amushya,
Amushya,
of him,
of him.
Kim,
Kim,
nothing,
nothing.
Kahva ar arthaha,
Kahva arthaha,
what interest,
what interest.
Aptaha,
Aptaha,
obtained,
obtained.
Abhajatam,
Abhajatham,
of the non-devotee,
of the non-devotee.
Swadharmataha,
Swadharmataha,
being engaged in occupational service.
being engaged in occupational service.
Translation: one who has forsaken his material occupations
One who has forsaken his material occupations
to engage in the devotional service of the Lord
to engage in the devotional service of the Lord
may sometimes fall down
may sometimes fall down
while in an immature stage.
while in an immature stage.
Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful.
Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful.
On the other hand,
On the other hand,
a non-devotee,
a non-devotee,
though fully engaged in occupational duties,
though fully engaged in occupational duties,
does not gain anything.
does not gain anything.
Okay, we'll read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. As far as the duties of mankind are concerned, there are innumerable duties. Every man is duty bound not only to his parents, family members, society, country, humanity, other living beings, the demigods, etc., but also to the great philosophers, poets, scientists, etc. It is enjoined in the scriptures that one can relinquish all such duties and surrender unto the service of the Lord. So, if one does so and becomes successful in the discharge of his devotional service unto the Lord, it is well and good. But it so happens sometimes that one surrenders himself unto the service of the Lord by some temporary sentiment. And in the long run, due to so many other reasons, he falls down from the path of service by undesirable association. Very beautifully written by Srila Prabhupada. The ideal situation is you should be ready to give up everyone and everything just so you can do only bhakti and propagate the message of the Lord. That is being in a missionary spirit. But if we do it in haste because of sentimental reasons, because something else is very distasteful, so you think, okay, if I'm serving the Lord, then I'm guaranteed that it is not certainly going to be distasteful. But the problem is that if you come in with a lack of maturity and understanding of what it really entails to be in the service of the Lord, in service of Guru and service of other Vaishnavas, then what happens is there is an expectation mismatch, and you may end up regretting your decision. That is why Krishna does not advise Arjuna to give up his duties and responsibilities. He tells him, you are not suited to be a sannyasi. You are not suited to live in the forest. So it's better that you just do your duty and responsibility until you get to the stage where you will know when it's time to give up everything. There are so many instances of this in the histories. Bharat Maharaj was obliged to take his birth as a stag due to his intimate attachment to a stag. He thought of the stag when he died. As such, in the next birth, he became a stag, although he did not forget the incident of his previous birth. So sometimes the attachment to family or anything else that you really love or desire comes in the way of progressing spiritually. Okay, was Bharat Maharaj wrong to rescue the stag from the pregnant mother who died in childbirth and who also was being chased by a predator? Was it wrong for Bharat Maharaj to save that stag? No, it was not wrong. Was it wrong for Bharat Maharaj to take care of the stag until it was able to be on its own feet and learn how to fend for itself? No, it was not wrong. But when he became absorbed in the animal, as if the animal could not live without his help and his guidance and his support, that is when he became really entangled. And for that, he paid a price. He paid a heavy price. He had to take birth as a stag because he was so attached to the animal. Similarly, Chitraketu also fell down due to his offenses at the feet of Shiva. Now you could say that is an unintended offense. Chitraketu just laughed because Parvati Devi was seated on Lord Shiva's lap. But Parvati Devi was not at all pleased. She thought it was quite insulting. For that he paid a price, but he accepted. He accepted the curse of Mother Parvati, of Jagannatha. But in spite of all this, the stress is given here to surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord, even if there is a chance of falling down. Because even though one falls down from the prescribed duties of devotional service, he will never forget the lotus feet of the Lord. Once engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, one will continue the service in all circumstances. So you need not worry. If you've performed devotional service in this life, and at the end of this life, for whatever reason, if you're not, quote unquote, successful in going back to the spiritual world, you can be assured that you will take birth in a pious family so that you can continue from where you left off. So in that sense, anything that you do on the path of bhakti is never lost. It is always preserved for you by the Lord. Once engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, one will continue the service in all circumstances. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that even a small quantity of devotional service can save one from the most dangerous position. There are many instances of such examples in history. Ajamila is one of them. Ajamila in his early life was a devotee, but in his youth he fell down. Still, he was saved by the Lord at the end. So, in this particular verse, Narada Muni is saying, if you've given up some of your material activities so that you can do some bhakti and start your journey, or the devotional path, sometimes you may not be successful in one shot. Right? Therefore, Narada Muni is saying, because of our immaturity, we may flounder even on the path of devotional service. But still, that is better than not being engaged in any devotional service at all. Because the person who does not engage in devotional service, but is doing his duties and responsibilities very nicely, well, Narada Muni says there's no gain for him. Why is there no gain for him? There may be material gain, but there's just no spiritual gain for such a person. So that brings us to shloka number 18. Tasyaiva hetoh prayatet kovidah
Tasyaiva yetoh prayateta kovidah
na labhyate yad bhramatam
alabhyate yad bhramatam uparyadah
tallabhyate dukavad anyatas sukham
tallabhyate dukhavat anyathas sukham
kalena sarvatra gabhiraramhasa.
kalena sarvatra gabhiraramhasa
Tasya.
tasya.
For that purpose.
For that purpose.
Eva.
Eva.
Only.
Only.
Hetoha.
Etoha.
Reason.
Reason.
Prayateta.
Prayateta.
Should endeavor.
Should endeavor.
Kovidaha.
Kovidaha.
One who is philosophically inclined.
One who is philosophically inclined.
Nalabhyate.
Nalabhyate.
Is not obtained.
Is not obtained.
Yat.
Yat.
What?
What?
Brahmatam.
Brahmatam.
Wandering.
Wandering.
Upari adaha.
Upari adaha.
From top to bottom.
From top to bottom.
Tat.
Tat.
That.
That.
Labhyate.
Labhyate.
Can be obtained.
Can be obtained.
Dukkhavat.
Dukkhavat.
Like the miseries.
Like the miseries.
Anyataha.
Anyataha.
As a result of previous work.
As a result of previous work.
Sukham.
Sukham.
Sense enjoyment.
Sense enjoyment.
Kalena.
Kalena.
In course of time.
In course of time.
Sarvatra.
Sarvatra.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Gabhira.
Gabhira.
Subtle.
Subtle.
Ramhasa.
Ramhasa.
Progress.
Progress.
Translation. Persons who are actually intelligent.
Persons who are actually intelligent.
And philosophically inclined.
And philosophically inclined.
Should endeavor only.
Should endeavor only.
For that purposeful end.
For that purposeful end.
Which is not obtainable.
Which is not obtainable.
Even by wandering.
Even by wandering.
From the topmost planet.
From the topmost planet.
Down to the lowest planet.
Down to the lowest planet.
That is from Brahmaloka to Patala. As far as happiness.
As far as happiness.
Derived from sense enjoyment.
Derived from sense enjoyment.
Is concerned.
Is concerned.
It can be obtained automatically in course of time.
It can be obtained automatically in course of time.
Just as in course of time we obtain miseries.
Just as in course of time we obtain miseries.
Even though we do not desire them.
Even though we do not desire them.
Prabhupada writes in the purport, every man, everywhere, is trying to obtain the greatest amount of sense enjoyment by various endeavors. Some men are busy engaged in trade, industry, economic development, political supremacy, etc. And some of them are engaged in fruitive work to become happy in the next life by attaining higher planets. It is said that on the moon, the inhabitants are fit for greater sense enjoyment by drinking Soma Rasa, and the Pitruloka is obtained by good charitable work. Oh, so now we know if you do a lot of good charity, which is not connected to Krishna consciousness, what's your destination? Pitruloka. So there are various programs for sense enjoyment, either during this life or in the life after death. Some are trying to reach the moon or other planets by some mechanical arrangement, for they are very anxious to get into such planets without doing good work. Prabhupada is saying. As per Vedic rules, if you do a lot of good deeds and if you accumulate pious activity, then it will give you like a visa to the upper planetary systems. So Prabhupada is saying these scientists, they are just trying to get into the planets through a machine without actually having done any of the good work. So they are just doing it by mechanical arrangement. They are not looking to go to the moon by doing a lot of pious activities and accumulating a lot of pious credits. They are just constructing an instrument, a machinery that will take them from Earth to the moon. So they can just go there, collect some dust, and come back. But it is not to happen. By the law of the Supreme, different places are meant for different grades of living beings according to the work they have performed. That means to enter into another planet, there has to be some visa system, no? That visa system is your pious credits. By good work only, as prescribed in the scriptures, can one obtain birth in a good family, opulence, good education, and good bodily features. We see also that even in this life, one obtains a good education or money by good work. Similarly, in our next birth, we get such desirable positions only by good work. Otherwise, it would not so happen that two persons born in the same place at the same time are seen differently placed according to previous work. But all such material positions are impermanent. The positions in the topmost Brahmaloka and in the lowest Patala are also changeable according to our own work. The philosophically inclined person must not be tempted by such changeable positions. He should try to get into the permanent life of bliss and knowledge, where he will not be forced to come back again to the miserable material world, either in this or that planet. Miseries and mixed happiness are two features of material life, and they are obtained in Brahmaloka and in other lokas also. They are obtained in the life of the demigods and also in the life of the dogs and hogs. The miseries and mixed happiness of all living beings are only of different degree and quality. But no one is free from the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Similarly, everyone has his destined happiness also. No one can get more or less of these things simply by personal endeavors. Even if they are obtained, they can be lost again. One should not therefore waste time with these flimsy things. One should only endeavor to go back to Godhead. That should be the mission of everyone's life. Essentially, the mood that Prabhupada is depicting in this purport is that all of us should be anxious to go back to the Supreme Lord. We should not waste time. Life is too short. We've had all kinds of enjoyments and distresses in our life. There's nothing left to enjoy or, feel distressful about. We've experienced it all. There will just be more and more that will come our way. More enjoyment, more distress. That's just the nature of this world. Now that we've identified the nature of this world, then one should feel that sense of urgency. What am I doing? Why am I wasting time? Why can't I just focus on going back to Godhead? At least that's what Prabhupada is indicating here in this purport, that this should be the mission of everyone in life. There is simply no time to waste. Yes, so that should be our mood. I don't want to waste any more time. Whatever little time I have, let me figure out what is the best I can do, given certain circumstances that each of us have to manage in our personal lives. So that brings us to shloka number 19. Navaijano jatu kathanchana vrajet
न वै जनो जातु कथञ्चना व्रजेत
Mukunda sevyanyavadanga samsritim
Mukunda sevyanyavad anga samsritim.
Smaran mukundan grihyupaguhanam punaha.
Smaran mukundanu upaguh anam punaha.
Vihatumicchenna rasagraho janaha.
Vihatumicche narasagraho janaha.
Okay. Na.
Na.
Never.
Never.
Why?
Why?
Certainly.
Certainly.
Janaha.
Janaha.
A person.
A person.
Jatu.
Jatu.
At any time.
At any time.
Kathanchana.
Katanchana.
Somehow or other.
Somehow or other.
Avrajet.
Avrajet.
Does not undergo.
Does not undergo.
Mukunda Sevi.
Mukunda Sevi.
Devotee of the Lord.
The devotee of the Lord.
Anyavat.
Anyavat.
Like others.
Like others.
Anga.
Anga.
Oh my dear.
Oh my dear.
Samsritim.
Samsritim.
Material existence.
Material existence.
Smaran.
Smaran.
Remembering.
Remembering.
Mukunda Angri.
Mukunda Angri.
The lotus feet of the Lord.
The lotus feet of the Lord.
Upaguhanam.
Upaguhanam.
Embracing.
Embracing.
Punaha.
Punaha.
Again.
Again.
Vihatum.
Vihatum.
Willing to give up.
Willing to give up.
Ichet.
Ichet.
Desire.
Desire.
Na.
Na.
Never.
Never.
Rasa grahaha.
Rasa grahaha.
One who has relished the mellow.
One who has relished the mellow.
Janaha.
Janaha.
Person.
Person.
Translation. My dear Vyasa.
My dear Vyasa.
Even though a devotee of Lord Krishna.
Even though a devotee of Lord Krishna.
Sometimes falls down.
Sometimes falls down.
Somehow or other.
Somehow or other.
He certainly does not undergo.
He certainly does not undergo.
Material existence like others.
Material existence like others.
Fruitive workers, etc.
Fruity workers, etc.
Because a person.
Because a person.
Who has once relished.
Who has once relished.
The taste of the lotus feet of the Lord.
The taste of the lotus feet of the Lord.
Can do nothing.
Can do nothing.
But remember that ecstasy again and again.
But remember that ecstasy again and again.
So Prabhupada writes, a devotee of the Lord automatically becomes uninterested in the enchantment of material existence because he is rasagraha, or one who has tasted the sweetness of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. There are certainly many instances where devotees of the Lord have fallen down due to uncongenial association. Uncongenial means not very conducive for their spirituality. Just like fruitive workers who are always prone to degradation. But even though he falls down, a devotee is never to be considered the same as a fallen karmi. A karmi suffers the result of his own fruitive reactions, whereas a devotee is reformed by chastisement directed by the Lord himself. The sufferings of an orphan and the sufferings of a beloved child of a king are not one and the same. An orphan is really poor because he has no one to take care of him. But a beloved son of a rich man, although he appears to be on the same level as the orphan, is always under the vigilance of his capable father. A devotee of the Lord, due to wrong association, sometimes imitates the fruitive workers. The fruitive workers want to lord it over the material world. Similarly, a neophyte devotee foolishly thinks of accumulating some material power in exchange for devotional service. Such foolish devotees are sometimes put into difficulty by the Lord Himself. As a special favor, He may remove all material paraphernalia. By such action, the bewildered devotee is forsaken by all friends and relatives. And so he comes to his senses again by the mercy of the Lord and is set right to execute his devotional service. So the Lord is always personally engaged in the lives of his devotees, and he may arrange for so many different types of experiences and chastisement so that you stick to him. You become fixed up at the lotus feet of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that such fallen devotees are given a chance to take birth in a family of highly qualified brahmanas or in a rich mercantile family. A devotee in such a position is not as fortunate as one who is chastised by the Lord and put into a position seemingly of helplessness. Because when you become helpless, you become dependent on the Lord. Until then, you think you are the doer. The devotee who becomes helpless by the will of the Lord is more fortunate than those who are born in good families. We'll read that sentence again. Such an important sentence. The devotee who becomes helpless by the will of the Lord is more fortunate than those who are born in good families. The fallen devotees born in a good family may forget the lotus feet of the Lord because they are less fortunate. But the devotee who is put into a forlorn condition is more fortunate because he swiftly returns to the lotus feet of the Lord, thinking himself helpless all around. So you have to beg for the mercy of the Lord, and you have to always tell the Lord, I am helpless. You have to help me. Pure devotional service is so spiritually relishable that a devotee becomes automatically uninterested in material enjoyment. That is the sign of perfection in progressive devotional service. A pure devotee continuously remembers the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna and does not forget him even for a moment, not even in exchange for all the opulence of the three worlds. So we'll stop here. So we've covered shlokas 17 to 19, where Narada Muni is saying that there is no fall down when you perform bhakti. I mean, you may fall down temporarily, but there is no permanent fall down. You will always be protected. Therefore, progress in bhakti is credited forever. There is no loss even in a fall down, and it is better to endeavor for the rarest of things, which is love for the Supreme Lord. And the results of bhakti are always permanent. It is always there in your account. It does not get depleted. The Lord always protects it. So next week we will take up shlokas 20 to 22.